Hey team, you're about to listen to my interview with Daniel Gurevitch, who is the co-founder and CEO of Kimonix. Kimonix is a merchandising platform for e-commerce, a personalized merchandising platform for e-commerce with a special focus on merchandising within categories and collections on an e-commerce website. Enjoy. This is the E-commerce Edge podcast with your host, Jason Greenwood. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the podcast. I have a very cool guest lined up for you today. I have Daniel Gurevitch from Kimonix, and he's based out of Tel Aviv. So welcome to the pod, Daniel.
Hi, Jason. How are you?
I am very good, thank you. I'm now based in Mexico and loving every minute of it, loving the weather, loving the change of pace. They say a change is as good as a holiday, so I'm very happy to be here now.
Probably good food.
Yeah, look, I love Mexican food. It's in my top 3 cuisines in the world that I absolutely love. So yeah, it's pretty cool to be here in the home of Mexican food. That's for sure.
That's good.
And look, it's awesome to have you on the podcast. I've mentioned it before, but man, I tell you, the Israeli tech / e-com ecosystem is just insane in terms of its growth over the last few years. It's not just the last few years, but I would say over the last 10 years, Israel, the ecosystem has leapt to the forefront of a whole lot of new developments. And I guess more than anything, the really successful commercialization of new developments in e-commerce. And as I understand it, it's a super tight-knit ecosystem as well.
Yeah, first of all, Jason, thanks for having me. It's a pleasure. And yeah, about the Israeli tech system, specifically in e-commerce and in Shopify. Also, we're mostly on Shopify. So many tech companies and founders and startups that are paving the way in various ways and within e-commerce. And it's pretty tight. Always wherever we can, we help each other, consulting each other, helping each other with, I don't know, sometimes some cool marketing and different types of helping each other, but always very friendly and very warm between everyone. Yeah, it's pretty tight.
Yeah, and it seems even would-be competitors seem to be friendly and willing to help each other. I'm sure there's definitely a competitive nature there, like there's anywhere in the world, but it feels very much like even what you would think of as competitors are willing to give advice, help each other out, give them a hand up, help each other learn from mistakes and wins, opportunities, that kind of thing. You were mentioning off air before we started recording that you recently had a meeting with Yair Mirin from Rise AI, or formerly from Rise AI, who's the founder of Rise AI, which is one of the biggest and most successful apps in the Shopify ecosystem. And you recently caught up with him in Israel.
Yeah, had a coffee, just got some asking him for a little bit of advice from his experience, from his way of building Rise and all the things that he's been through. We're in the middle of it. It's really interesting to get his take on things and get his advice and the way he looks at building a company and growing, getting good growth with your SaaS. It's always insightful to talk to him and understand where he met the problems, how did he overcame them, and he's been really successful. So it's always a pleasure for me to listen to this type of people.
Yeah, he's had an incredible success, obviously, over the years and his platform being acquired. And yeah, he's doing some pretty amazing stuff in the ecosystem. And for anybody that wants to hear my interview with him on the podcast, I have interviewed him before, and that goes all the way back to episode 123 in March of 2022. So go and check that out if you're interested. But we're not here to talk about Rise. We're here to talk about Kimonix, and you've been building Kimonix for just over 2 years now, but you do have a more extensive background in both consulting and e-commerce. Sunbeck, you were head of e-com for them. You were senior consultant at Goldrat Consulting. So you've got this background, I guess, in retail tech and e-com. But what, I guess, prompted you to start building out Kimonix? Were you scratching an itch? Did you see a gap in the market? How did you come up with the concept of Kimonix?
Yeah, so as you mentioned, Kimonix was born out of my experience of working with hundreds of companies from different sizes, from small and medium here in Israel to retail enterprises in China and US, and also brick and mortar enterprises and online. And understanding when coming from brick and mortar, where merchandising is a common practice, to the online sphere, to e-commerce, I saw there is a huge gap. Even though in e-commerce you have much more data and much more ways of exploiting that data into smart merchandising. But the merchandising solutions and the way they are managing, websites are managing their merchandising, looks like it's in its inception. And I think this is because, the way I see it, it's because up until a few years ago, the online channel was something that was like nice to have. It wasn't, it was like a 5% from the total, from the revenue, from the business. It was basically another revenue stream, very good for awareness, for branding, stuff like that. But it wasn't like the main channel. And this is why all the solutions and all the companies were just trying to find out what will sell the best and then promote that. And when you are dealing with merchandising, all the way back from hundreds of years in brick and mortar, you need to have a more holistic view of considering also how to sell more, but also how to optimize your inventory and how to optimize your margin and take care of your bottom line, your profits. So I saw there is a huge gap there in terms of how stores are managing the website. And as the online channel grows more and more to become the main channel for many retail companies, the way you are managing that aspect of your store has a huge impact on the performance and the profitability of the entire company.
Yeah, there's absolutely no question about that. I think we've seen the rise of search and merch technologies and platforms, and also merchandising platforms, and personalization platforms like of Nosto, etc. So we've got a lot of players in this space, and I have interviewed some platform vendors before on the podcast that do search and merch and do personalization. I've had Nosto on before. I've had a few other major players in the space, and so I do, within reason, I understand how these technologies typically work. And it feels like you guys, and I've never used your technology before, so correct me if I'm wrong, but you guys, instead of trying to be both search and merch, personalization, and product recs and the whole 9 yards, you're really focusing on merchandising of collections or categories within Shopify. And so you don't want to own the site search piece. You don't want to necessarily own all the product recs piece necessarily, but you really want to specialize, and you have niched down into that merchandising within collections/categories. Do I understand your tech correctly?
Yeah, you're right on. So we started from collections. We had that aspect of merchandising going through there because we've seen a void in the market in that sense. Because even though players like Nosto or SearchSpring or even Algolia has some type of solution for collections, it's not as advanced. Their main focus is on search or product recommendations. And collection pages has a huge impact on the performance of the store. Those are the main landing pages in your store other than product pages. And around 75% of the clicks are done on the first results page in a collection page. So companies with large catalogs that has it, let's say in a main collection, they have 200, 300, 500 products. Average customer sees probably 30 or 40 products. So the product that you display in those top 30, 40, 50 products is crucial for the store. And we decided to go through there, and we came up with a product that basically becomes like the command center of the store, because we take a lot of data points, whether it's Shopify admin, Google Analytics, Google Shopping, reviews apps like Books, and whatever. We're working with the Loop Returns now on integration, getting as more data points as we can in order to allow the merchant to use those parameters in order to execute the right merchandising strategies based on their business goals. And everything is done through the back end. So they can even build those collections, use them for the site, use them for marketing channels, use them for analytics. They can do whatever they want with them. And then it becomes like like I said, like a command center for operating the entire store.
Makes complete sense. Absolutely, category merchandising is at the heart of most e-commerce stores in terms of creating landing pages for performance marketing and being able to create custom sub-collections for specific segments of customers, being able to merchandise one category against another and basically break it down by really granular rule sets and also custom merchandising capabilities. And I'm guessing that you have the ability to do both. You have the ability to set rules for specific categories. And so in that sense, I guess you have dynamic merchandising. And I'm assuming that also the merchant has the ability to specifically define the order of products that display in a specific collection or category. And it feels like you bring analytics into that, as you said. And as I read from your website, you are really taking both sales data, inventory data, and also returns data, as you say. If you're connecting to other third-party systems that are bringing in basically product performance information in any way, shape, or form, whether that be profitability of the product based on the COGS of the goods, the actual cost of the goods versus the revenue, the sales price of the goods, You're taking in a whole bunch of data, and then you're allowing the merchant to set rules around the merchandising of that collection or category, or they can manually override that and completely define everything and how it displays in that category completely manually and order that specifically for their marketing needs.
So basically, we're trying to avoid manual work, actually, trying to
Mm-hmm.
find the sweet spot always between having manual control over the setup and the strategy of a collection page, but let the data and automation do all the work for you. So we created many mechanisms within the collections manager that allows you to really, in a very specific way, control the setup. For example, okay, maybe you want the first row of products to be new arrivals. Then the second row, you want to be bestsellers. And then the third row, you want slow movers, like non-moving stock products that you need to promote. And then you want that automatically to repeat itself, to have like new products, bestsellers, slow movers, new products, slow movers, bestsellers, slow movers, etc., etc. So you can set up that rule based on what you want, whether it's new arrivals, whether it's type of products, whatever you want, in order to create the setup of the collection, the infrastructure, but then let the data and automation do the work. So you don't have to manually go every day and have someone do that like a full-time job. So we're trying to always find that, like I said, the sweet spot between manual control, but have everything automated.
Yeah, that makes complete sense. Having rule sets in place makes a lot of sense, because then, as you said, merchandisers, particularly e-commerce merchandisers, particularly if they have very large catalogs, it's extremely difficult, even just from a search and merch perspective. Site search optimization, that can be a nearly full-time job for a merchandiser. And so obviously, if they can set up smart rules within your platform, and then effectively that's almost like a dynamic segment of the catalog. And then as products fall in and out of that segment based on the rules and based on the data that's coming real time into your platform, then it's going to reorganize and restructure that category around those rules in near real time, so that the merchandiser really just has to think about the rules, and they have to think about why, the strategy behind the rules and the tactics behind the rules to support their merchandising and marketing efforts. And then I guess it's hands off from there. So it's kind of fire and forget to a certain degree.
Exactly. And they can still, using the system, if they really want to, they can always pin products to the top or push up a tag, products from a certain tag, or they can do some stuff that really affects that manually. But we do, like you just described, where our goal is to have them use those rules, think about the strategy, think about which parameters are the most important for them. For example, of course, you have inventory or the value or the margins, the inventory value, or for example, apparel brands, they want to take into consideration how many variants are in stock from a certain product, because if you have a product with a broken set with only extreme sizes in stock, it will not convert as well. They need to put that as one of the parameters. So they need to also think about the high level strategy, and then also understand which parameters are most important for them when sorting the products within the collection. So they have a few layers of functionalities in order to control that. And once they do that, our goal is for them to let go and let us do all the work.
And from what I can tell, you only work with Shopify today. We can talk about that a little bit later in the pod around potential expansion to other platforms. But if we think about your platform through the lens of Shopify, Shopify has a lot of ways of adding attributes to products, both default out of the box attributes like brand and price, etc. And obviously it's got its understanding of products with variants in 3 different layers of variants. But it also has the ability to add custom product attributes via tags and custom product attributes via meta fields. And there's a couple of other ways in which you can get additional data into a product, both in its name and its description, etc. But I'm guessing and I'm assuming that you can take just about anything to do with a product, from a product tag to almost any other attribute, and you can use that to drive the smart categorization of products.
Yeah, for sure. So they can use tags, they can use meta fields, they can use the type, the vendor, product ID, title. Anything a product has, they can use in our system for sure. And whatever Shopify brings out next, we'll have it too. Yeah.
Fantastic. And from one of the other things that I see brands often wanting to do, if they, let's say they're a manufacturing brand, let's say they're a D2C brand and they manufacture some products, but they also sell products from other brands. And sometimes what they'll want to do is they'll want to elevate their own brand's products within certain parameters. Obviously, they usually want to have the product in stock, etc. But they'll want to elevate one brand, their house brand, up to the top of the results of a given category. And do you see that as being quite a common scenario where they want to elevate either their own brand or perhaps a brand that they would typically make a better margin on? Is it usually based on their profitability, or is it based on other attributes? What is the most common thing you're seeing in the market around the types of rules that brands are creating? I'm guessing it's around margin and availability are probably the top two.
So I think there are two different types of also brand. There are many types of brands, but there are marketplaces like you mentioned with different brands and different other suppliers, and there are ones that they have only their brand. So when considering different store, kind of a marketplace or whatever it is that sells different brands, then definitely I see there's much importance for emphasizing this brand or another over others. And this is some of the what we call like the brand's needs and things that they have to do with that has nothing to do with the data, right? Because they're saying we need to promote this type of product. So for that, like I said, they can have full control over saying, okay, these products from this vendor should be at the top of the collection, and they can say, I want the first 5 spots, first 6 spots, or whatever they want, and then make sure, of course, they get the top product that has inventory and sizes in stock and whatever it is to be at the top automatically. Then definitely we see that. The main parameter would be, of course, sales and conversion rate and page views and adds to cart, but sizes in stock and the inventory and days to finish inventory that allows you to identify the slow movers and like the non-moving stock, and the real margin that we calculate after all the discount codes they run in the store that don't reflect in the product's price. So you can identify and promote the real high margin products and not just based on retail price.
And how do you guys do that, given the fact that Shopify's promotion engine out of the box is pretty rubbish? And I don't know a single merchant on Shopify that I've ever worked with that uses the out of the box promotions engine. And as a result of that, they all run apps that help them manage their promotions inside Shopify based on rules. And we can think of all the top vendors of the promotions apps, that there's probably a handful out there that are popular across the board. And if we think of that context, is that something that you plug into? You work hard to make sure that you're plugging into those apps to understand the promotions that they're running? Or I guess in most cases, those apps actually via API connect to Shopify. They create the special price, etc., during the period that those promotions are running. And so you're really looking at the original price versus the promotional price. And so you're doing the calculations on the fly based on the actual catalog prices of those products. But in some instances, those apps then what we would consider like a shopping cart price rule, where at a certain threshold or whatever, then an additional discount gets applied. But I'm guessing the only data that you guys can realistically pull from is the special price versus special price of a given product in the catalog at the time.
So the special price, you mean it was purchased?
Yeah. So, for example, the price of when you're looking at the catalog, usually you'll see a strike through of a price. Maybe it started at $10, now it's at $8, and I'm guessing you're then looking at, when you are looking at merchandising in real time as someone's browsing the site, then depending on the rule set, you can either promote prices that are on special or on promotion and have a special price set, a sale price set, or you can say, look, let's actually promote non-special price products, because special price products or discount price products are already merchandising themselves as someone navigates the site. So we don't need to promote those. So I'm guessing the merchandiser simply has complete control over whether they promote the products that are on special or they choose not to. They choose to demote them.
Yeah, you can do whatever you want. You can play with it however you want. Any other type of parameter, you can have all the discounted products first or last, and you can have for each group. Let's say you divide it into groups, into segments. So maybe you want the full price products first, okay? So you put all those products first, and then you have a different sorting strategy for that, which is based on maybe sales quantity, conversion rate, and inventory. And then you take the second segment, which are the discounted products, and for that you want a different sorting strategy, right? You want maybe inventory value, days to finish inventory, and how many days it's been in the store. So you can really play with it however you want in order to capitalize in the best way for each type of product.
So what you're saying effectively is that you have both segments and subsegments within the same collection. So let's say you choose to put all your special price products to the top of the collection, but within that group, of that first group, you can create subsegments of that and say, I actually want to order that first segment of on sale products. I want to order those by these other three rules. And then underneath that, all of my non-special price products are displayed after that. And I want them to be merchandised by these three rules. So you can almost create sub-segments within the primary segments of the category that you create.
Exactly. So you can go really deep, or you can have it really simple. It's up to you, but you can really go very deep, like you mentioned, and really build the collection in the way that you want, based on the parameters and the business goal of each even like subgroup of products.
And do you guys, as of today, and I'm guessing you're going to answer no, but we know for a fact that certain customers, based on their purchasing behavior, sometimes customers will need stimulation, meaning that let's say on average, a given customer only buys products that are on special, 60 on promotion, on discount, 60, 70% of the time they buy products that are on special on average across all their purchases. And then let's say we have a customer that returns products quite frequently. And we say, okay, we actually want to demote for that specific customer that's authenticated, and we know who they are and we know what their behavior is. We want to customize the collection over and above the generic collection rules. We want to dynamically display that category based on rules that the customer falls into, not just segments of products, but segments of customers. Are you at the moment also allowing rules to be set based on authenticated customers and your knowledge of their behavior? Or is that something that you really just focus on the attributes of the catalog?
So currently we're offering, you can have customer preferences as one of the parameters within a sorting strategy. We're not using product segmentations, we're using one-on-one personalization. Basically what we are doing, we're tracking each customer, not based on their past purchases, but based on their browsing history in your store. So we're looking at all the products they are looking at, clicking on, and then once we have enough data, our AI model finds similarities between that group of products to all the rest of the purchases and customers in the history of the store, and then identifies the intent and the taste of that customer and promoting the products they are most likely to buy in this collection.
Okay, I see. Yeah, so effectively the customer's falling into almost like a predefined segment based on rules. And then once you know what segment that customer falls into, then you are tweaking the results that they receive in a collection based on that segment that they fall into.
Yes, but it's important to understand that our main goal is not to have it fully personalized. I don't believe that a fully personalized experience is a good one for the company. It might be good for the customer in some way, but you need to always balance between what the customer wants and what the company needs to sell. Because if you are just promoting the products that the customer is most likely to buy, again, you're creating a problem with your inventory, with your margins, etc., etc. So you need to balance between the parameter of customer preference. And customer preference is a very important parameter, but it's not the only one. Like we said in the beginning, it's a more holistic view that needs to consider all the parameters and KPIs in the business. So you want to balance between customer preferences and sales and inventory and margins and all the parameters that are important for your store.
And I guess there's also has to be room for surprise and delight. And I think that's always the risk with over-personalized experiences, whether it's search search and merchandising, whether it's product recommendations, whatever it might be. I think there's a risk of over-personalization in all these scenarios, in the sense that the customer may not be shopping for themselves. They may be, in this particular session, they may be wanting to buy a gift for someone else that is not their demographic and not based on their rule set that they would normally see based on the segment that they would typically fall into as a buyer of products for themselves. They're coming to shop for someone else. And in that scenario, that all of a sudden runs counterintuitive to hyper-personalization, right? And also the surprise and delight model of e-commerce and the impact that can have on conversion rates, revenue, etc. That also is put at risk in a hyper-personalization model. So I think that while hyper-personalization is absolutely important as a fundamental tenet of trying to create one-to-one experiences as much as possible on an e-commerce site, there are just certain scenarios where hyper-personalization is actually counterproductive.
I totally agree. And I think this can hurt the store as well, because if you're basically, each store has also in terms of the customer experience, but also in terms of the business. Each store has usually a classic Pareto of 20% of the products are generating 80% of the revenue. And when you are only promoting products that are most likely to sell, you're typically moving those 20 or 25% of products all the time. And then they're out of stock, and then you replenish, and then they're out of stock. And all the rest of the products are laying in the warehouse and creating a lot of hidden costs. And you're blocking the cash flow and everything. So you're basically creating a vicious cycle in the store without knowing so, and because you're selling, but you don't understand that you're hurting your profitability, and basically you're putting your company at risk. So this is just on the business side. And what you're saying about the customer experience, I think it's customer preferences, and the personalization part is very important in a store. But I do think that we need to find the right balance and the right mix of products. For example, we're getting into product recommendation now. Okay, we created the first feature for that, only for the collection page, but we are going to use the entire engine that we have for managing the collections, also for product recommendation. And for example, if you're at the bottom of a product page, you have a carousel of you may also like. That can be like with the segment. So you can have, instead of have everything personalized, maybe have 2 products that are personalized, and then 2 products that are new arrivals, and then 2 products that are non-moving stock, for example. You can create that right mix wherever you want across the site in order to make sure that you're attending all KPIs and all business goals of the business.
I like that. So in a single product recommendations panel, you can have that populated with products with different rules applied to them. So as opposed to having the entire panel populated by the one rule, you can effectively, again, as you've done within the collections, you've created almost like segments and subsegments to populate not only the meta order of that collection, but also the orders within the suborders. And you effectively are going to translate that same model into the product recommendation panels at various different placements, whether that's in a collection, whether that's on a PDP, whether that's on a cart page. Either way, you're going to allow the merchant to be able to create effectively subsegments within that panel driven by independent rules.
Exactly. So they can be fully personalized, or like we did with the collections, or by different types of parameters, or by different types of products, whatever it is. You can also create, you also have currently for the collection page, for example, product groups. So you can decide to group some products together. Let's say you have a set, like a bathing suit, for example, the top part and the bottom part. So you want them always to be next to each other. So you can group them together and make sure they are always together. So you can group, okay, for this product, I want a recommendation of an accessory that goes really good with it. All right. And you can have one subset of frequently bought together, one subset of recently viewed, and one subset of personalized. So you can have you can really play around with it in order to have the right mix and balance between different types of products.
Yeah, I guess giving that granular level of control to merchandisers is very important, because every store and every brand and every catalog is so different that really there is no one size fits all for any merchant. And so absolutely giving, I guess, that super granular capability of setting rules, setting fallbacks, setting next best product type of recommendations where something might be out of stock, or where that's a low converting product, and so we want to recommend something in place of it. Having that granular rule set is super important for merchandisers. What are merchandisers asking you for today that you don't already do? Is there a feature set that you go, wow, we're doing all this stuff, we're doing this amazing stuff, and we've got a super flexible rules engine here and segmentation engine effectively, but this is the thing that we don't do today that our merchants really want us to be able to do, and we're going to add to the platform ASAP?
So first of all, product recommendations, because it's really the obvious thing that we have this engine, why not use it for product recommendations? I see more and more that they do want a one-stop shop. So this is our goal, to become a one-stop shop for merchandising. Eventually, like having now, we're getting into product recommendation, eventually probably for search. And also we want to manage the entire promotions and discounts for the store as well, which is also a big part of merchandising. So currently we're seeing a lot of demand for product recommendation, and this is why we decided to have this next in our roadmap.
It's interesting that you say that, because I think all roads seem to lead to Rome now. So regardless of whether a platform has started out as just a site search platform, enterprise site search platform, or whether it started out as just a product recommendations platform in a personalized way, or whether it started out as just a merchandising engine within dynamic categories and maybe even dynamic menuing, all of you guys seem to be going after that holy grail of an all-in-one search, merch, personalization engine. And that makes sense, right? Because merchants, if they can find one platform that does 5 things, they'll always take that over a platform where they have to have 5 different platforms to do those 5 individual things. Even if it's only just 5 Shopify apps, they feel like, they're being nickel and dime to death. But there's weird interactions in some respects between some apps and others that is hard to predict until you've got all those 5 apps installed, and they don't always play nicely together. So having one platform that kind of one ring to rule them all, so to speak, makes a hell of a lot of sense, but it's obviously very expensive and very complex for you to build out all of those different modules. And where do you think that this industry is going? Because I've always said to my merchants, when I'm talking to them about and consulting on search merch personalization technology, is that the search and select process for this segment of apps or third-party platforms, whatever you want to call them, it's probably the most complex for merchants to consider. If you're looking at other parts of an e-commerce platform and other things, shipping engines, etc., it's perhaps not as complex. It's oftentimes there's maybe only 1 or 2 apps that can do that specific function on their website. Whereas when you get into search and merch, it starts to become really complex because there's so many vendors out there trying to do things differently, and they oftentimes do things differently, but it's hard for merchants to differentiate what it is that makes those platforms unique. And so because every one of these vendors in this space seem to be heading in a similar direction in terms of completeness of functionality under one roof, how do you see yourselves within the pantheon of these types of technologies, and how do you guys try to differentiate yourselves in a way that merchants can easily understand? Because oftentimes merchants, they just don't have the technical nous in-house to be able to make those judgment calls between 2 seemingly similar.
Yeah, so first of all, not only in merchandising, I see that in other verticals as well. I don't know, reviews apps or loyalty programs you have.
Or promotions for that matter.
Or promotions, you have many companies doing similar things, but in different ways. Also returns, also inventory management. You have different ones that really, there are some main verticals. And yes, in merchandising as well, there are many companies. But we see ourselves like, we discussed this before, but we see the most of the solutions are focusing, their entire technology is focusing on how to identify which product will sell the best, and then promoting that product. And we offer a more, like I said, a holistic view that allows you to have more control, like we described before, with all the segments and the subsegments and all the functionalities and all the data points and everything, more control, and in order to execute the right merchandising strategy for you, and not only personalization or not only pushing up that brand, or like having the ability to really control that, everything that you need in an automatic way, have full dynamic control over the setup of your merchandising. That is where we see our advantage, and the ability, like I said, to really consider different KPIs and promote your profitability, help your profitability, increase it. This is where we see our advantage. We see ourselves like a type of a command center. You got all the data, you got everything in, and now you're building your strategies on a high level, and you execute that based on your needs across the site for everything, each down the road, when we're one-stop shop for each aspect of merchandising. And each one of those aspects will also help each other do better. They will talk to each other, of course, and do better. And this is why I also think that having all-in-one is much better, because the search can help the collections, and the collections can help the product recommendation, and so on. And by the way, since we're doing everything through the back end of Shopify, and we're touching the collection from the angle of the collections, we basically can coexist with most of our competitors. Like, we have customers using each one of our competitors while using us, because we don't clash with anyone, and because we have the collections management. But I do think that down the road, they will want to use our type of engine in order to manage each type of aspects of merchandising industry.
Makes sense. The word that leapt to mind as you were describing I guess your key differentiator is nuance. I guess the key here is that there's uh, a much more nuanced approach to the rules engine, and it's also collecting, in many cases, much more data to inform those nuances than perhaps other platforms might do. And so that's a real key differentiator for you guys. Now, from a technical perspective, you only work with Shopify today because of the way Shopify doesn't allow you to inject in, not easily anyway, to inject in its your own results or your own ordering for collections. Are the collection pages themselves actually being served up from your server, so they're not actually being served up by Shopify, or are you somehow getting the ordering of those collections, you're effectively updating those via API based on your rule, or are you dynamically generating those collection pages in real time and serving them up from your servers?
No, we're doing everything through the API of Shopify. So everything is done through the backend and through Shopify admin. We do not hold any collections on our platform and then serve them to the front end or in any way. So everything is very friendly in that sense. Of course, we're able to do so for collections management, but once you're going into product recommendations or search, of course, you need to also get into the front end and control some parts of the front of the store.
And then I guess those are just effectively widgets that get injected into the theme.
Down the road, yeah, of course. But for the collections management, this is also why we can coexist with other solutions and we don't clash with anything. It's very easy to use, is because we're doing everything through the backend.
Makes sense. Now, you currently only work with Shopify today. Do you have a vision and a view of working with other platforms, BigCommerce, Salesforce Commerce Cloud, VTEX? Is it on your roadmap that you'd like to get into other platforms? Or do you feel like you've got your hands full with Shopify for now, that's not on your immediate wish list?
For sure, it's not in our immediate wish list because there's still so much potential in Shopify and so many things to do and so many really amazing customers, and Shopify just keeps growing and more really good brands are joining and migrating from other platforms. But for sure, down the road, we do want to be agnostic. I'm not sure if we'll do one by one or just create an API system that can integrate with any type of site out there. So we'll see.
Yeah, obviously the depth of integration it's a very complex integration when you're going to the level of granularity that you guys are going to, and with all the third-party systems and apps that you need to integrate with for data aggregation and analytics. Makes complete sense. That would be a little bit further down the line. Now, if we just change gears for a second and we basically work out how you guys make your money, you guys have got a bit of a blended model, as I understand it. You've got the typical SaaS model where you've got tiers, basic, starter, advanced, superior, and those sort of have a base rate associated with them. But then you also, that rate is impacted by the number of monthly orders that the merchant is doing as well. So there's the tiers that you have, we could think of those as almost like the base rate for that tier, and then that's modified based on the number of orders that you're doing per month.
Yeah, exactly. We have what we are doing, by the way, this is a fixed fee. It doesn't fluctuate. It doesn't change based on the number of orders. What we're doing, once the merchant starts a plan, we calculate the average monthly orders that they have in the store. And then based on that, we price each one of the plans. Once they start a plan, it's a fixed fee as long as they are on that plan. So it doesn't change. So that's
amazing. That seems more than fair. If I'm doing 15,000 orders today and I go on your basic plan at $232 a month, and then within 6 months I'm now doing 30,000 orders a month, but I'm staying on the basic plan, I'm going to continue to pay $232 a month for the life that I stay on that plan. I guess it's when it gets reassessed is if I decided to go from basic to starter, then you're going to reassess my average monthly order, say, for the previous rolling 12 months, and then I'd get reassessed at that point.
Exactly. Once you stay on the plan, you got the same price. If you want to move to a different plan, the price will be according to the current average of monthly.
Wow, and I guess that there's two benefits to that. It doesn't just benefit the customer, but I guess it also benefits you in the sense that the model then encourages people to go on to maybe a higher rated plan now, even if they don't think they're necessarily going to use all that functionality today. If they think that within the next 6 months they're going to be using all that functionality of a more advanced plan, then it behooves them to get onto that advanced plan as soon as possible, because it then locks in themselves at a lower price at their current average order volumes.
Exactly. That is,
wow.
Yeah. I've seen customers that start with 10,000 monthly orders, and then they, after 6 months or 8 months, they reach like 25,000, and they still paying what they paid initially. Definitely a big incentive to go for the higher tier plan.
Love it. Love the commercial model. It's definitely SaaS, and it's still that sort of tiered subscription model. But I love the fact that effectively you're incentivizing people to go and merchants to go onto the more advanced plan. If they think they're within a reasonable time frame, they're ever going to be using that advanced functionality, they may as well take advantage for their commercial benefit. But it also locks in people to a higher plan for you guys. So it's an absolute win-win from a pricing and commercial perspective as I see it.
Yeah, I agree. That's why we did it.
Love it. Love it. Very creative, very creative. Listen, we're coming close to the end of our time together. If people wanted to get a hold of you and find out more about Kimonix, I'll just spell it out for people. I'll also put the link in the show links for anybody that wants to click through and check it out. It's Kimonix, Kimonix.com. You can request a demo through the site. You can immediately install the Shopify app if you wish and sign up through the website as well. Would you prefer that most people go through Kimonix.com, or would you prefer that they come and they connect with you maybe on LinkedIn? Daniel Gurevitch, would you prefer that they come and contact you through LinkedIn? How do you prefer that people find out more about Kimonix?
Like, first convenient for they can do it through the website, through the App Store, through LinkedIn. They can shoot me an email, daniel@kimonix.com. It's all good for me. I just want to meet new merchants and understand what they think about Kimonix and how we can help them do a better job of merchandising their store.
Love it. Love it. And we're at the point where now I get to flip the script. I get to turn the microphone over to you and let you ask me one question, any question you like. It can be personal, it can be professional. So I guess I'll turn the microphone over to you, Daniel from Kimonix. What's your question for me today?
Wow.
I know I love to make this hard. I love to drop people right in and give them an opportunity to grill me.
Well, you've been interviewing so many people, probably not only from Shopify, eCommerce, I don't know, Magento, all different types of platforms. This is the first thing that comes into my mind. Where do you see the entire platform market in 5 years from now? Is it controlled by Shopify, let's say Shopify, BigCommerce, and some others, or it will break down into many competitors? How do you see that market evolving?
I think if we're talking B2C/D2C, I see Shopify as an almost unstoppable force right now, based on the adoption rate of the platform, based on their installed base, based on their app and vendor ecosystem that they've managed to build out over time, based on the strength of their revenue and profitability from payments. But if we think of Shopify as a payments platform, because that's really what it is, in excess of 70% of Shopify's revenue comes from payments and from finance. And so I don't think of Shopify as an e-commerce platform. I think of it as a payments platform that offers e-commerce. And so the draw card is being able to enable merchants to sell stuff, but we just have to face the reality that Shopify is a payments platform. And I think and they're extremely United States centric. So all their new functionality, everything comes out in the United States first. It sometimes never comes to other countries outside of the United States, or at least outside of North America, for obvious reasons for them. And so I think that they have a vulnerability in the payment space, as we've seen with Stripe, and Stripe is their payments partner and a whole lot of other things. The short answer is I don't see them going away anytime soon. I still see them continuing to dominate, but I see that within specific verticals and within certain feature sets, Shopify just will never be there, and they have no intention to be there. They are a platform for the masses. And so I think we're going to see more vertical specific B2C, D2C platforms emerge, especially for merchants that need more control over the customer experience, or perhaps want to do a hardcore headless implementation. And I think that that's going to slowly chip away at their dominance. But I still think in the B2C, D2C space that if we look at only 5 years, they're going to be absolutely dominant, and perhaps even more dominant than they are today. With the growth of marketplaces, I think marketplaces are more of a threat to Shopify than other e-commerce platforms. Now, if we get outside of B2C, D2C, and we start talking about B2B, it's a totally different story. For most of I would say for every one of my clients that are B2B, Shopify is an absolute non-starter. Even with some of the apps out there that can make B2B possible on Shopify and some of the new B2B functionalities they brought to the platform, they are so far behind in the B2B space that's a much more open playing field. And I don't think we have in the mid-market and higher form for B2B e-commerce space, I don't think we have a clear winner yet. I think BigCommerce has struggled to digest bundle B2B into their core offering. I think that there's no platform out there right now that does everything perfectly from a B2B perspective. I think VTEX is a really strong offering in that space. We've got some other strong mid-enterprise platforms like Peppery and others, but I think it's much more open slather in the B2B space. And so that's what I see moving forward, is I see lots and lots of competition in B2B, but B2C, D2C, I see Shopify continuing to dominate for the foreseeable.
All right. That was, interesting take, especially on the B2B.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that they're trying to play catch up, and with the amount of resources that Shopify has at their disposal, I think they're gonna go really hard at the B2B, because I think they see that as a major missed opportunity. But during COVID, they had to put all their B2B aspirations aside because they were working so hard to to support B2C, D2C merchants, particularly with the integration of POS and some of the location management stuff that they needed to add to really make that a viable option for larger retailers. I think that they were distracted for the whole period of COVID from looking at B2B, and now they're looking at that as the next big opportunity for them.
Wow, I see.
It has been so enjoyable speaking with you today, Daniel. I appreciate your transparency. I appreciate your honesty. I appreciate your knowledge and your experience in the space. And I appreciate you sharing it with my audience. It's been an absolutely enjoyable conversation. I learned a ton. And I wish you every success with Kimonix. And I'd love to get you back on maybe in another year or so and see what you've done with the platform in the intervening time.
Jason, thank you very much for having me. It's been a true pleasure and talking to you and just talking about Kimonix and other stuff in e-commerce and Shopify. So thank you very much, and hopefully I'll be back here soon.
Are you a B2B or D2C e-commerce merchant? Then head over to greenwoodconsulting.net to learn how we can help you scale your business.